What's up guys, Tuna here. So I've been working on this build for about 20 days or so, and I'm really happy to finally share it with you guys. I'm going to be league starting this build, and we'll be streaming my progress on Twitch every day as always, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have over there. So make sure to come by and interact in the chat if you'd like to. So first of all, I'd like to thank Palstron for helping me improve the build, with a lot of back and forth between us to sort of come to the end passive tree that you will see in the PoB. And I would also like to thank Deki for writing the notes on the leveling process for my PoB. The PoB is linked in the comments with leveling trees and notes, so make sure to check those out. And if you don't want to waste any more of your time, just go click that and just grab it. But if you're interested in hearing sort of the process of the build, how to build it and things like that, make sure to stick around. There's a lot of information that's about to come, so yeah. If you'd like to support the channel as well, make sure you click the like button and sub, I guess. You know, that always helps with the algorithm, so yeah, thank you very much for that. So now, let's talk about EA. So EA is Explosive Arrow. EA is a very good clearing skill, and it also has very good single target because of the way that the fuses work. It's also very tanky in Incineration. It has 40,000 evasion and 30,000 armor, as well as cap suppression, which I think is going to be very important for the upcoming bosses. It is not relying on too many items. It is very SSF friendly. I had an SSF run for about 15-20 days, and I gotta tell you that it was very, very easy to get going. The only thing that might be a little bit of a challenge early on is the Died in Dawn, depending on the demand for the build. So that is the belt right here. But that shouldn't be more than, like, I don't know, you know, a bunch of chaos or whatever. But yeah. So before we go on, I would really like to explain how EE works, because I know people are gonna sort of have issues with this, and I would like to just sort of clear the waters and make sure that nobody actually comes into having any issues with this. So the way that EE works is, if you hit with a specific type of elemental damage, it applies exposure for that element, for the other element, sorry. So essentially what we want to do is we want to make sure we have some form of damage to attacks. In my case, I have cold damage to attacks on my gloves. And what happens is that when Explosive Arrow hits the enemy, it applies exposure for lightning and fire. And when it explodes, then it will apply the exposure for fire. But by that time, it'll already have dealt that ignite on the enemy. Therefore, the ignite will snapshot the negative fire resistance, and so on. The process will go on and go on. It will just sort of, you know, it'll sort of be like reapplying the exposure right before the explosion. So that is exactly what we want. And yeah. So now I'd like to talk about why Explosive Arrow. So ignites deal damage based on the base damage of the skill itself. And the way that Explosive Arrow works is that the base damage scales depending on how many fuses you have on a single target. So what that means is that we're able to then scale attack speed to get additional damage. And as of 3.17, we also gain additional damage per fuse to our ailments. So that means that we're not only getting more base damage, but we are also getting more ailment damage per fuse. So that means that after the ignite nerfs, we are actually getting a 40% more damage buff in 3.17, which is why there's been a lot of hype around this build. And I couldn't make it up. I had no idea. I'm not a GGG spy. I had no idea that we were actually going to get a buff, and I thought the build was already in a great place, but it's going to be 40% greater, let's just say. And yeah, I'm really excited to be starting this build in 3.17 because of that. So yeah, Explosive Arrow deals 5% more damage per fuse on the target, and it's going to get 5% more damage with ailments. And we use ballistas to be able to actually get easily those 20 fuses on the target, as we can put 6 ballistas down and they attack 2.5 times per second. So we were able to stack about like 24 fuses on the target before the first fuse expires, giving us you know, that multiple of 200 multiplier, right? So yeah, that's pretty great. So thanks to the 20 fuse multiplier, we can actually gain additional ways to scale our ignite, which generally you don't have the ability to do that, since most skills are just you hit once and then you let the ignite expire. You cannot stack ignites. Ignites only work by, you can have multiple ignites on an enemy, but only the biggest ignite will deal its damage throughout its duration. So you can refresh ignites by having a bigger ignite or having an equal ignite applied to the target, but the game will always choose your biggest damage dealing ignite. So it is very important for us to be able to get the 20 fuse explosion within the time of a specific ignite. But that's not really too much of an issue, as ignites generally last about 5 seconds or so. So you have 5 seconds from your first big 20 fuse explosion to actually deal another 20 fuse explosion, which is not a problem since the ballistas are just doing their own thing. They're automatically attacking and everything's good in that regard. So this is why we actually choose ballistas, because without the ballistas we're unable to actually get a 20 fuse explosion. So if you think to yourself that if you were using a barrage support, which gives you 60% less damage multiplier, you're gonna be still struggling to hit 20 fuses, because getting the attack speed required to actually hit a target 20 times within 1 second or 1.2 seconds, depending on how much duration you have on your explosive arrow, it's generally very difficult. But if you have 6 turrets down and they all shoot at the same time and they all target the one target, we're gonna be able to get that 20 fuse explosion much more easily, and that is exactly why we chose ballistas, and that is why this build I think does so well on both single target and clear. I know a lot of people are turned down by the whole ballista playstyle, but as you see from some videos on screen, you'll see that it's quite a comfortable playstyle with ignite proliferation and just right clicking the screen. You're gonna be clearing screens and you're just gonna be walking along, and since we're extremely tanky, we're gonna have no problem surviving through, you know, monster hits and things like that. So yeah, I think it's a very good playstyle, and I really have been enjoying it. Yeah, make sure to check it out. So we will start at Elementalist, and we path up to get Ancestral Bond and the Ancestral, the Totem Nodes right here. Get some life and damage over time, and then we path straight down. If you would like to see the process of leveling, you can see here at the bottom left of the PoB. It has Act 1 leveling, Act 2, Act 3, and so on, and you can go all the way to endgame and the respec as well, and the very endgame tree. And not only that, we also have leveling notes here, which I will make sure to keep updated if I find anything interesting and whatnot. So make sure to actually if you want to stay updated with the build, come to my Twitch channel, come to the Twitch channel and see if there's any updates or whatever. So otherwise, I think this is just already good enough to go. So yeah. All right, so let's get to some of the nitty gritty. This is a simulation of the gear I would like to achieve by week 1, and you can see here that we end up with 16 million damage, and that is pre 40% buffs that we're getting 3.17. And not only that, we actually have an insane amount of defenses with a maximum hit taken of quite a high number. So that is very nice, and we are boasting about 40,000 evasion and 32,000 armor, so that is really nice. The tree itself is not really too dependent on clusters. However, getting Sleepless Sentries is going to be very good, as you'll be able to get permanent onslaught from that, and you can further expand upon this and get some other clusters here and there. That is completely up to you whether you want to actually get a bigger cluster setup and cut some of this stuff over here. Yeah, that is completely up to you. So I would like to first explain how we calculate the average hit, how many hits we're getting, right, per fuse. So as you can see here, my duration is 1.33. So if I go into my calculator and I say we have 6 totems, right? That's 6 totems. And then we multiply it by the attack rate, multiply it by 2.55. And then we multiply it by its duration, so that's 1.33. And then what we get is 20, but we're getting 6 additional hits because our ballistas will attack first, and then only from then will it start ticking down the 1.3 second duration. So long as we're getting 24, we are well over sort of what we want to be for our target, as our totems will attack in multiples of 6. So as long as we're getting 24 fuses, that means that we are guaranteed to get 20 fuses, and that gives us a little bit of leeway, maybe if like one of the totems misses or whatever. So that's going to be really nice to be hitting that 24 target, and once we're able to hit that, that's why we hit 20 fuses. And this is why it's so important to have a thicket bow, a bow with a fast attack speed, and why we also want to be getting attack speed wherever possible, maybe on our jewels or whatever, attack speed with bows, and attack speed here in the totem wheel, etc. We take Elemental Overload because Elemental Overload has a very good uptime. Even if we only have 12% critical strike chance, we are attacking that many times per second that this will be guaranteed to be up all the time. So that is, not something you should worry about. It's going to be up while mapping, of course, as well, because of how many hits we're getting per second within packs and whatnot. We want to have the mana reservation because we're reserving actually many auras. We'll also be taking the grace reservation there to be able to fit determination, grace, precision, and a high enough level of clarity so that we can put our totems down. So yeah, that's really nice for mapping. We also have a little bit of mana gain on kill, so because of that we have no problem sustaining while mapping. However, when we get to the single target, we might want to actually drop Val Clarity, be able to put down all of our totems all down at once, and then all we want from there is just to be able to sort of sustain that. So we'll be wanting to put a totem down every so often. Our totem duration is pretty big, so we shouldn't worry about that too much. And as I said earlier, we want to be able to put one big ignite on a target every 2.63 seconds, so that gives our totems a little bit of time to be able to sort of refresh that ignite. And so long as the fight is not too movement intensive and the boss is not teleporting from side to side, then we're going to be able to have a pretty high uptime, if not 100% uptime. Otherwise, there are ways to get your ignite duration up. There's a craft that you can get on your helmet that gives you 100% duration of ailments on the enemy. So that what that does is that will bring our ignite duration from 3 seconds to 6 seconds, right? Which basically doubles the time that we have to apply a bigger ignite. So yeah, that is very, very nice. There are different things that you can get for this build to sort of min-max as you go on, but if you have any questions in regards to that, then make sure to check out my Twitch channel. Come say hello, ask any questions that you'd like, and yep. So there are different things that you can also choose to do on the tree itself. You do not necessarily have to follow this tree to the T. If you get a lot of suppression on your gear, then you can also skip going over here, and you can choose to get another large cluster. Alternatively, you could also get a lot more life if you'd like, and drop some of the damage. But the very, very, very essential nodes that we want to grab are down here, Panopticon and Ironwood. So that's going to give us the +1 totem. It's going to make sure that our totems do not die. And yeah, I think that's very, very essential. We also want Totemic Zeal, and Primal Manifestation, as well as Ancestral Bond. And the thing about Ancestral Bond is going to make it so we can't actually deal damage with skills ourselves. So we get into a situation where we have to sort of do some tricky things to be able to proc Combustion, which is something that I'd like to talk about right now. So the proc Combustion in this PoB currently, I am actually going to be using Ice Trap. So what we want to do is we want to have a setup like this. We want to have Ice Trap, and we link Combustion to it. And it's as simple as that. Ice Trap Combustion, and that is going to make sure that we apply Combustion like once every 4 seconds. So we're going to drop an Ice Trap on the enemy once every 4 seconds to be able to get that Combustion, so that -10 fire resistance. And the reason why we use Ice Trap is so it doesn't actually mess up our EE, right? So if you were to use anything with like actual fire damage or anything like that, it would actually mess up our EE, which we do not want. But we can actually comfortably use Ice Trap, and we're guaranteed to ignite with that because of Shaper of Flame. So that is no problem at all in that regard. And we also use Flame Surge. As you can see here, I have Flame Surge linked to, this should be linked to Arcanist Brand, because I changed that just right now. So Arcanist Brand, increased duration of Flame Surge, and what Flame Surge does, all it does is it gives us 25% more damage as long as the enemy is on the burning ground. So that is something that we should just have up all the time if possible. That's why we have Arcanist Brand following, attaching to the enemy, and so it's not going to be too much of a problem or to keep up or whatever because of our skill effect duration as well. That is really nice. And that Flame Surge itself is going to help us actually proc this node right here, Heart of Destruction. So since we are totems, Heart of Destruction is not actually ever proccing, but we are getting the 60% area of effect up all the time while mapping, and this is going to be helping us with like proliferating our damage and things like that, which is actually really, really nice. But on single target, we do want to be getting that extra damage, so the only way to actually proc this is by using Arcanist Brand Flame Surge. So make sure that you are dropping the Flame Surge on the single target to be getting that 23% damage buff. So that's sort of like a nice little segue into talking about the Ascendancy choices. Bastion of Elements is a good choice. However, we don't really care about reflected elemental damage taken, since our totems are actually taking that reflected damage, and we are actually not dealing enough damage to kill our own totems. So we can run reflect maps, no problem at all. And the shield itself is about 2.4k, and it's not actually that big, so I think it's better to just skip that and go for Shaper of Storm. So what Shaper of Storm does is it allows us to get a big shock on an enemy because of the damaging ailment effect that you can also grab over here if you like. If you have enough resistance, what you can do is you can grab effective non-damaging ailments and so on. And so that is going to give us a shock, and yeah, the shock is going to increase the damage the enemies take by a substantial amount. So we choose Shaper of Flame. This is a no-brainer because it gives us 100% chance to ignite, but it also makes it so that if we deal damage with any other element, so for example if I have flat cold damage, that is also going to give us extra damage for our ignites, and same with flat lightning damage. So that makes us able to get like flat sources of damage to contribute towards our ignite, and it's really nice way to scale our damage. And also it synergizes extremely well with elemental equilibrium, so that is something we do want to get. Mastermind of Discord, again, huge synergy with elemental equilibrium, since now elemental equilibrium has been changed to be exposure, as you can see here. Hits that deal elemental damage, you know, give exposure now, instead of it just being negative resistance. So what that does is that we're actually getting an extra 25% on top of that because of this. And not only that, we're also getting 1% mana regen if you inflict exposure, which is what's giving us our mana regen while mapping, since we're, you know, applying exposure AoE all the time. And that is very nice for both our single target and our clear. And then hard destruction, obviously this is strictly a single target notable, which gives us 23% more damage, as you can see here, with 30% more elemental damage for 4 seconds. And yeah, so as you can see, the Ascendancy choice has a lot of synergy. The only one that I would maybe consider swapping is Shaper of Storm for Bastion of Elements. Aside for that, maybe you could also go Shaper of Winter to be able to get more slows, you know, so you get 15% action speed slow. But yeah, so this is the only one that I would actually consider swapping. I would like to now talk about some of the gear choices that I made for this build. So these are some of the gear choices that I would make a little bit later into the league when I had more currency. However, I also have a path of building attached to the description that is a more budget setup, so I will open it right here as well. I'll go over the budget setup first, and then we can maybe talk about the not so budget version, right? So for a bow, I would actually use Tempest early. So the Tempest longbow is actually very good because it has very high attack speed. As you can see, 1.95, and it has good lightning damage. So that is, you know, gonna give us a little bit of damage there and a lot of attack speed, and that's gonna make sure that we are hitting our attack speed targets to be able to get our fuses on the target. Our damage is not that high, but that is because we actually have very budget gear here. As you can see, a broadhead quiver with just fire damage over time and life. That is all we want. A helmet with just suppression and life. A belly of the beast, or any chest for that matter, that is going to fill out some of our resistance, some of our life. Alternatively, you could go for like an influence chest that gives you endurance charges or anything like that. All of this gear is extremely flexible. We have gloves here with suppression as well. So you have various slots to fill your suppressions on. That is helmet, gloves, body armor if you have an evasion armor, and boots. But in this situation, this was my SSF character, so I ended up farming at series steps. I got 24 suppression on there. So between this, between the gloves, the boots, and the helmet, I ended up being able to fill my suppression to 102%. Alternatively, if at series steps are really expensive, you can just go for 20% suppression on the boots, gloves, and helmet, and maybe some on the body armor to fill out the rest. And that'll be able to get you to cap suppression. So that is very important that you want to cap your suppression, because otherwise you're going to have a chance to take full damage, and we do not want that. So yeah, the gloves are very basic. Just a little bit of flat damage for our EE, some life. We really want to craft attack and cast speed while focused. So the reason why we want attack and cast speed while focused is because of, again, how ignites work, how we're not actually able to stack ignites. So the way that we want is that we want to have a big ignite every so often, and what focus lets us do is that within that window, it's going to apply a huge ignite. It's going to make sure that we're well over the 20 fuse threshold, and it's going to guarantee us to get a huge ignite on the enemy. For the amulet, it's just damage over time and life. That's all we want. We also look for maybe some flat damage to attacks, any of that sort of stuff. it's pretty nice with this build because you can actually get a lot of damage just by having flat damage here and there, some damage over time, so percent elemental damage. So elemental damage with attack skills is a huge stat for us since we're lacking on increased damage and whatnot. So yeah. The Death Rush is an insane ring for early. This ring, until we get our totem medium, which I'm not really too sure how much it's going to be or anything like that, but until we get that, this is going to give us onslaught on kill. So this is going to be very nice for mapping. Your single target is going to be sort of suffering because of not having that 20% attack speed. But for mapping, at least we get the 20% movement speed, 20% attack speed. It's going to make our build feel smoother. And not only that, it gives us a lot of accuracy, a lot of armor, some life, and it also fills out our chaos res, which is really nice. Since I suspect there's going to be a lot of chaos damage, as always. Our second ring is just anything really, anything we can find from Delve with flammability on hit, or you can also go for Warlord ring and craft it with Caster Reforges with Harvest. And yeah, the only item that is absolutely mandatory here is the Idean Dawn. This belt is just absolutely insane. It gives us, 30% more damage because our ignites deal damage faster. So this is something that you're going to have to grab. Regardless of the price, it's just too good. It's life, resistance, and obviously a ton of damage. For the flasks, I do recommend always going for Jade and Granite Flask. That is because we are an evasion armor build. That is going to fill out our armor and evasion. And the third flask is completely up to you. You can go for, a sulfur flask if you like. It's a lot of damage. As you can see here, it's 7% ignite damage. That is very nice. And then obviously a life flask. We have clarity for our mana regen, so we don't worry about that too much. And then the jewels are just whatever really. It's just damage, life. The Watcher's Eye, I put a precision attack speed in here for more consistency on single target, but you can grab anything there. If you've hit the target here for the attack rate, then you can grab anything that you like. Yeah, and Rain of Splinters again is completely mandatory. You don't exactly need it, but if you choose to actually get additional arrows on your bow or whatever, make sure to always have an odd amount of arrows, because if you have like 2 arrows, they will fork, and so they will miss on single target. So yeah, that is the budget gear, and here I'd like to look at some of the more advanced gear. So what we can do is we can buy a Porcupine bow, and we can craft it with Essences of Dread for +2 to socket bow gems. From there, we want to keep rolling the Zeal Essences until we get T1 attack speed. Once we have that, and our suffixes are full, what we can do is we can craft cannot roll attack modifiers and slam for a guaranteed +1 to socketed gems. And that will be our best in slot bow. And actually, fire damage over time is not the best in slot craft there. If you have a free prefix, what you want to do is you actually want to craft fire damage as extra chaos, as you can see here. And that is going to give us more damage than fire.multi. However, if you don't have a free prefix, then what you want to do is you actually want to be crafting fire.multi as a suffix. So yeah. For our quiver, again, it's just accuracy, flat damage, elemental damage with attacks, and .multi, and life. So that is going to be a bunch of damage there that we can get. And we're also getting a quiver update. So we're gonna probably want to be getting a % accuracy quiver, depending on how much accuracy you currently have. So potentially you could lower the level of your precision and go about it that way, or you could get a elemental damage with attack skills quiver to get more damage there, or alternatively maybe you could go for a synthesized quiver if you want to go all out on that with additional arrow or whatever, right? So yeah. For our helmet, ideally we want to get a Blizzard Crown. However, we do not yet know what the new influences are going to be able to give us. But yeah, a Blizzard Crown is the best damage for this slot at the current state, because it gives us a lot of flat cold damage. As you can see, that flat cold damage gives us about 8% damage, and that is because of Shaper of Flame. Once again, any flat damage that we add to the build is going to give us ignite damage, and it's going to scale our base damage, aka scaling our ignite. For the chest, again, this gives us a lot of ignite damage because of the flat that we get. And not only that, it gives us 30% suppression, which puts a lot less strain on the rest of our gear, as well as a lot of evasion. 3000 evasion is a lot of evasion there. We can gain evasion as extra armor as well, so that's going to scale very well with that, with the way that we scale our defenses. For the gloves, it's fire.multi, life, attack speed while focused. That's all we really want on there. Maybe you get some evasion, some armor as well. That is very useful. For the boots, these are not by any means not best in slot. 20% suppression though is a lot. But if you can fill out suppression on gloves or helmet, then you can drop the boots for hunter boots that give you faster ignites, right? So you can get up to 12%, I believe, on boots. And alternatively, eventually you'll be able to awaken or orb that with onslaught or something like that. So faster ignite, onslaught, and then live movement speed, that sort of stuff. The amulet is just damage over time multiplier, life, elemental damage with attack skills, attack speed, any of those sort of stuff. So those are just the stats that you want to look for. Effective non-damaging ailments as well really helps for the shocks, so that is very useful too. And the rings is just the normal stuff, you know, life, resistance, accuracy. One of them will have to have flammability. And I think for recovery, because we are getting recoup on rings, it would be nice to actually be crafting for recoup as well. So that's probably a stat that I will look forward to having on my rings to get a little bit of recovery with the build, since unfortunately, as we are totems, that is the only thing that the build really is actually lacking. But with the amount of defenses and tankiness that we have, it's not really too much of an issue to sort of be relying on our life flask, because we have so much time to recover, since the enemies are going to be taking ages to actually take us down. And yeah, for the second ring, we want to go for a damage over time ring that is crafted with essences, or we can just actually alternatively just get a huge elemental damage with attack skills with flat damage and attack speed. So just the normal stuff to scale. And the rest of the gear is just completely, you know, template, let's just say. So just attack speed, life, jewels with dot multi, or alternatively you could get burning damage, fire damage, percent increased damage. Those are all good stats. Dying Sun is really nice because we get a lot of AoE and we get 2 additional proj. And if you actually have Dying Sun, you don't even need Rain of Splinters. So if you see here, Rain of Splinters is actually giving us negative 5% damage. So if we take that off, we take Rain of Splinters off, and we keep Dying Sun, then we keep that, you know, 18 mil damage, which is really nice. Yeah, it's really nice for clear, so we're gonna keep that. We don't necessarily actually need damage, and keep in mind that we're actually getting 40% more damage this upcoming league, so this build is gonna be insane in that regard. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to be league starting this build, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all the people that are actually gonna be playing this build. You know, I've been putting a lot of time and effort into making this build really good. I've taken a lot of inspiration from Havoc, which was playing the Explosive Arrow Ignite build in a group, but self-attack. And I saw that and I was like, yo, I want to go back to Blight League when Explosive Arrow was actually really strong. And so in turn, I started making trees to sort of fit this build and see if it was actually possible. And I'm really, really happy with the way it turned out. Once again, I would really like to thank Palstron as well. Make sure to check out his YouTube and his iteration of the build. The tree is going to be the same. We've been working together, you know, to try to improve this build. He's a great content creator, great guy, so make sure you check him out as well. And so yeah, if you have any question regarding the build, make sure to check us out on Twitch and come ask whatever you like. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to be league starting this build. I'm really, really happy about the league expansion and all that stuff. This is going to be a really good one. I look forward to seeing you guys, and I hope you have a fantastic league start. Love you all. Take care.